We're here for another edition of the Outlook series, and I'm your host, Mike Lippis. While some believe that the warehouse management space is mature, others continue to invest in the rapidly evolving landscape of distribution robotics. A case in point are order fulfillment systems in which the WMS directly controls picking subsystems such as voice, pick carts, put walls, and pick to light without the need for any additional third-party control software. This provides significant benefits to distribution operations, such as dramatically lowering hardware costs for the picking subsystems and devices, eliminating the need for integration between the WMS and the picking system control software, and enabling enhanced optimization of the end-to-end picking process through complete control with one system. Current WMS research includes areas such as capturing and utilizing demand signals from IoT devices, use of next-generation real-time location systems in the DC, and leveraging machine learning techniques in the WMS. Now joining us to discuss the warehouse of the future is Dan Gilmore. Dan is the Chief Marketing Officer at Softeon. Dan Gilmore, welcome to the Outlook series.
Thanks. Very pleased to be here today.
Hey, Dan, now can you tell me a little bit more about Softeon?
Sure, glad to do so. So just real briefly, Softeon is a global supply chain software company. We have a very broad product suite, but we really focus on three main kind of anchor applications. The first is, as you've been discussing there, warehouse management systems. Something a bit newer that works with the WMS called a warehouse execution system, or WES. We'll talk about a little bit more about that in a minute. And the third main anchor area would be what's called distributed order management, which is kind of a sourcing optimization capability that's popular in omnichannel commerce, but beyond that as well in terms of deciding the best place to source product from and how to fulfill orders. All of our solutions are available in the cloud or on-premise. And just kind of what we're known for in the industry is having very innovative software, having very rich and deep configurability to be able to get a out-of-the-box solution that meets your needs, and maybe most importantly at all, a 100% track record of deployment success. Our customers range from very large and household name type companies to more mid-sized firms as well. So we're all supported with one single product line. So that's a little bit about the company.
Okay, so Dan, do you believe there's some major changes happening in the WMS market?
Yeah, I think we're at a real inflection point, frankly, in the WMS sector. You know, arguably, there was only sort of incremental progress in the WMS market for a couple of decades, really, in terms of new functionality, new capabilities. A lot of folks focused on broadening their suites, as Softeon did as well. But what we're seeing now is really a key turning point where there's some exciting new capabilities that have come to, as you indicated, this very mature space of WMS, and it's something that I think users should really be excited about.
Now, one important change involves the movement to WMS in the cloud, right?
Yeah, that's very key. You know, the reality is that warehouse management systems, compared to some others in the supply chain space, was a little slow to move to the cloud, and that was for a variety of reasons. Probably the most prominent was the fact that there were concerns about performance issues running off the cloud because WMS requires so many, real-time or accelerated processes, things like materials handling system, communications, even extensive label printing, pick-to-light, and some of the technologies you mentioned in terms of picking subsystems, et cetera, only the kind of millisecond response times, and there was concerns that they couldn't achieve that in the cloud. But, that's really starting to change course significantly. About 2/3 or 3/4 of our new deployments are in the cloud. And I think it's helpful, as companies start to look at that and seeing, big interest in the customer base out there as well for cloud solutions. But, sometimes people don't really understand sort of all the dimensions here. And so I found this model is very useful. There's really three dimensions to a cloud, to a WMS deployment model, the deployment. The first is the deployment model itself. Is that, the new cloud model, or is that the traditional on-premise model where you install the software on your own servers within your own enterprise firewall? Then the second dimension is the pricing model. Is it going to be a traditional upfront license fee with annual maintenance agreements, which is kind of what's been the norm in the industry for since its inception? or is it going to be more of a new subscription or transaction type pricing model? Okay, so you think about that. That gives you right then 4 elements. You've got the traditional model, which is on-premise deployment with a upfront license pricing model. You've got the new cloud model, which is cloud delivery, but with subscription pricing. And then you've got some hybrids, which is you could deploy it in the cloud but have upfront license pricing. You could deploy it on-premise and have a subscription pricing. So you got to think about really what those options are. And then there's a 4th dimension, which is the management model. So, is the shipping company, the end user company itself, going to manage the WMS, or is the software vendor itself going to do that, which of course is greatly enhanced by the cloud delivery, makes it just a whole lot easier. So I think it's important when for companies to really understand what it is they're trying to achieve if they're looking for a cloud WMS. And I think the good news is, we found out, to our pleasant surprise, that the performance issues that the companies were concerned about are, way overblown. We're simply not seeing it, even in sophisticated DCs with lots of materials handling and lots of label printing, et cetera. We can put what's called a local agent down in the DC that might just, buffer materials handling communications and provide just a little bit of enhanced performance there. But we're finding it's just rarely needed to ever have to do that. And we're just finding, the customers are just much happier on the cloud than they are on premise. They don't really have to manage the system. We can take care of that for them. Mm-hmm. And even if you're concerned about performance, it is possible to start on premise and easily migrate to the cloud later with the same exact product, to do so in a matter of days. But we really now recommend the cloud from the get-go because there's just so many advantages, and we're just finding the customer satisfaction is so high.
Wow. Now, how about changes in how WMS solutions are set up and configured? What's new there?
Yeah, well, the WMS industry from its founding has been known for being fairly heavy services in terms of deployment, and to an extent you're never going to get away from a little bit of that, but I think it really still takes too much time to set up and configure these systems and stand them up, especially for multi-site rollouts. The opportunity, I think, to be a lot faster there. So one of the things that Softeon's developed is a thing we call a configuration wizard. It's a powerful tool, and it allows you to start with a template. That could be something that we have built for various industries, whether that's food or beverage or the 3PL sector or electronics or wholesale distribution or whatever it happens to be. Or it could be a template that we work with you to build for your own business, for your own company, for a multi-site rollout. And now after you've started that with that template, to apply it to a new facility or a new rollout, you just need to apply the template and then let the wizard guide you through the things that are different about that next facility versus the template. That's not going to be everything. Much of it is going to remain the same. So you embed that in the wizard and then in the template, and then you just change the things that are going to be different for that application. And it's rather amazing, actually. It walks you through a series of prompts, almost like in a tax or a TurboTax type dialogue. If you're familiar with that, I assume most are. Yeah. It kind of walks you through step by step what's been done, what hasn't been done, what you need to do, what the options are, whatever. And it allows you to configure the next system very, very fast, very, very easily with little or no assistance required from Softeon. This is very popular for us in the 3PL sector, but a lot of other ones as well. And we just think it's a much better way, and it's gotten to the point now where even our own WMS consultants are using the wizard themselves to configure systems in these multi-site rollouts.
Now, let's talk about adding new technologies such as increasingly mobile robots, voice, put walls, etc. What's going on there?
Yeah, there's a huge interest in this, and you kind of mentioned it at the opening of the broadcast there, but there's just so many technologies that are available now, things like voices, and I'm just repeating some of the ones you've mentioned, but voice, smart cards, pick-to-light, very popular put wall modules for piece-picking operations, and of course, especially mobile robots, which has a great, developing a great interest in the marketplace. The challenge, though, is that these solutions, in almost all cases, are what I call interfaced in. It's an integration, but it's kind of taking the orders, throwing them over the wall, letting the software from the picking subsystem do the work, and then throwing the acknowledgments back over the wall to the WMS. This causes a number of issues. First off, it means you got a number of interfaces to maintain, which is time-consuming and expensive. It means you can wind up with some fairly expensive hardware. Things that should be commodity hardware become expensive because there's this layer of software associated with them. They really operate in almost of a silo type scenario there, and it really doesn't allow you to optimize the full picking, replenishment, and slotting process, which we think are binded together in order to deliver, the best results. And then one of the big things is exception handling. Exception handling is also very hard. And so again, these systems just kind of wind up as silos. And we've decided that determined that there's a better way to do that. So, first off, we have our own voice solution. It's you don't need any third-party software. All you need is a Android device, whether that's a ruggedized smartphone or a terminal from Zebra or Honeywell or one of those companies. But it's just a downloadable app that runs on those devices. And what this means is you can reduce the cost of voice hardware and software, allows full integration with the WMS, not an operational silo. And, it also enables you to easily add voice outside of the order picking area where it's so prominent, and things like replenishment or pallet building and things like that, when it's just a native application, as part of our own WMS. And, you mentioned at the beginning, but the technologies like put walls, mobile robots, et cetera, we don't need the third-party software to do that. We can talk directly to what's called the API level to manage and control these subsystems. No other software required. This is just a fundamentally different approach. It has an enormous number of benefits for companies. It means lower cost hardware up front. Means you can do that more complete optimization for cost and or throughput. You don't have to maintain the integrations. Much faster implementations, going from months to implement some of these subsystems, half a year, whatever, to a matter of weeks. In some cases, even less than that. So this is kind of, I think, the path going forward there, where rather than having all these interfaces all over the place that don't allow full integration and optimization, you're going to see it just be integral to the WMS, or at least that's how we do it.
Now, do you see other use of voice technology in distribution?
Yeah, this is really interesting. I just mentioned a second ago that we're seeing voice, especially the way we approach it, that you can implement it outside the picking area where it is predominated for almost 3 decades now, 2.5 decades, whatever it's been. But we're starting to see interest in it in other applications, and if you can enable those easily, then it gives you the opportunity to get the benefits of hands-free operation, et cetera. That is what drives the voice of value. But what I'm talking about here specifically in terms of the changes of voice technology, those applications like picking, like replenishment, whatever, are what are traditionally called transactional voice systems. They're doing a job and just using voice instead of, say, for example, barcode scanning. But we're moving to what some of the analysts are calling conversational voice, where you're actually having a dialogue with the WMS through the same voice terminal you're using to do picking. And this often might be at a supervisor level or a manager level, certainly, but it could be more broadly implemented for the associates. But what you can do there with this conversational voice is everything from like simple queries. For example, you can ask, what's the status of a certain replenishment? If I'm waiting to pick for the replenishment to show up, you can ask the system, where is it? And you get a response back. Or maybe it's a manager saying, okay, where are we at today in terms of how many cases we've shipped? So you can begin to start to ask those kind of questions via voice, or it can become more complex dialogues and actually provide some system input. So, for example, I might be able to put a pallet on hold because of some kind of quality issue, just through a voice discussion. So, one of the things I think that the audience should take away from here is that there's a lot of exciting opportunities here, and in voice increasingly, for some, not all, but for some of the interface into the WMS, it's not going to be through a regular type terminal or even a PC, but it's going to be through a voice-enabled conversation.
Now, maybe most interesting of all, do you see a move to what some are calling the autonomous warehouse, and what is that all about?
Yeah, very good. Well, I kind of referenced at the beginning of the broadcast here the notion of a warehouse executioner system, or WES. It's increasingly popular. You see a lot of write-up about it in the trade media. Certainly, we've seen growing interest there. And the WES, it's related to the WMS, but it really kind of sits on top of the WMS, whether that's our own WMS, where you have a out-of-the-box integrated solution, but it could be any third-party WMS. And it provides a powerful new set of capabilities to automate the release of orders and other work based on all kinds of different factors. The WES would consider things like the opportunities for optimization by bundling batches together, or how batches are created, what the inventory status is and replenishment status, what the priority of different orders are, what the processing and travel times are. You might need to be able to calculate how long it's going to take to get from the time a pick is released and it gets picked and put on a conveyor and goes through some process. When's it actually going to wind up on the truck? Things like carrier cutoff times, all these things. So the WES becomes smart enough to factor all of those things together and determine what work should be released when, to at any point in time get the job done at the least possible cost and to meet demand and meet those service commitments and carrier cutoff times that I just spoke of there. So the work just flows out to the floor. This is very different than we've ever seen before, and it requires little to no human human interface. Taking all the latency out of the process there, and just results in much higher productivity levels. You can easily meet the demand and service the requirements, as I said there. And so many places when the carrier cutoff time, say for e-commerce orders, are approaching, there's almost a level of chaos there as they're trying to ensure that all the products are supposed to be on the truck make it on the truck. And with this WES approach and the smarts I just talked about there, it really enables the system to make those decisions, release the work appropriate, considering all the factors I've discussed, and those boxes are going to get on the time with simplicity and precision and consistency. And it's going to take what is often a kind of a bit of a chaotic situation and turn it into a smooth-running engine.
Well, Danny, it's been an interesting discussion. Do you have anything else to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, I guess I'd just say, WMS has been around. Debate a little bit about the history, but by my reckoning, WMS was first invented, real-time WMS, meaning use of real-time data capture with the wireless devices, was in 1975. So we're talking about a 45-year-old, and as you said, very mature category. But yet, 45 years later, both as a result of innovation by vendors such as Softeon, as well as the market that continues to change with the rise, for example, of omnichannel commerce that we weren't thinking about all that much 5-8 years ago. The WMS category continues to reinvent itself, and the new advances we're talking here today are not the incremental progress we've seen in WMS for the last 2 decades. They are step change capabilities. This is a new WMS era along all the things I talked about and more today. It's changing the game in WMS, and Softeon certainly looks forward to talking with the companies out there that hear this about how we can help them march forward in this brave new era.
All right, Dan. Hey, it's been fun speaking with you, and I wish you the best of luck with your future endeavors over there at Softeon.
Thanks so much. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks for joining us today, and be sure to log on to the Outlook Series site for your business and technology news.